Gracie Jiu-Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 39 of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. Very excited because on the show today, my guest is none other than the former middleweight UFC champion, Rich Franklin. And we'll be doing that interview in just a moment. Before we get to that, today is Veterans Day, and I just want to take a moment to wish all the veterans everywhere a great day and say thank you for serving. I had the honor to serve in the U.S. Army, the National Guard, and the Army Reserves way back in the day, and I have fond memories of those times. So, again, just wanted to thank all the vets, and my guest, Rich Franklin, has been actively involved in helping vets for many years. It's something he's very passionate about, and we do discuss this in the interview. So Rich won the title on June 4th, 2005. His pro record is 29-7-0 with one no contest. Out of the 29 wins, he had 15 KO/TKO victories, 10 submission wins, and 4 decisions. Besides winning the middleweight championship, he had 2 successful title defenses, 1 knockout of the night, and 2 fight of the night fights. Rich recently made the decision to retire from fighting, but is still keeping busy with a number of new endeavors. So I'd like to play a clip. This is from his fight with Chuck Liddell, and it takes place right after the fight ended.
55 seconds of the very first round. Declared the winner by knockout, Rich Cheers, class. All right, I'm here with Rich Franklin. Rich, the way you're holding your hand, is your hand hurt? Early in the fight, when Chuck threw that kick to my body, and I blocked it with my left side, my left arm is broken. I can feel the bone clicking. Wow. Where is it, bro? It's right here. Yeah, you can see it pop up. Wow. That makes the knockout victory even more impressive. Now, coming into this fight, tell us, what was the game plan? The game plan was to not stand in front of him, which I started to do a little bit, keep the lead hand active. And, once he kicked me in that arm, and I could feel the arm clicking, I looked down at my forearm one time to kind of check it. And it took me out of my game a little bit. It really did. He caught me there at the end. Had me back against the fence, but I just kept my cover tight and tried swinging. Things landed. Did you think it was going to be even possible for you to have come out for the second round, or did you think this was a last hurrah on the first? Are you kidding me? I broke my hand before and I didn't quit. I never quit. It's a broken arm. These fans came here to see a fight. Well, let's take a look at the end of the fight. Chuck was coming after you. not sure if it was that one, but it was one of those kicks. Maybe. I don't know, but yeah, it was a kick like that, and I can feel it right away. Well, let's take a look at the end of the fight. You countered smartly. He was chasing after you, very aggressive, and you hit him with a beautiful right hand right here.
Yeah, the thing about Chuck is when he gets on the run, he really overcommits on things.
Yeah, you punched him with your broken hand.
Well, it was the right that actually put him down, though.
Well, tremendous victory, a huge victory over a legend. Congratulations. Just, give us your thoughts now. Will you be competing as a light heavyweight now? Will you go back to middleweight? Have you decided?
I don't know. You know what? Ask Dan on the rim zone of the UFC. We'll see what they say. I'm here at 205 now, and if my next fight's at 205, that's where I'll be. That's my plan. I want to make a run for the title.
Always a pleasure watching you perform. Congratulations. Rich Ace Franklin, ladies and gentlemen.
One of the greatest stories in UFC history. Another defining moment for the former longtime UFC middleweight champion. Congratulations to Rich Franklin. He knocks out Chuck the Iceman Liddell. Liddell works his way back towards his locker room, perhaps for the last time. Only time will tell. Tonight, a night of celebration for Rich Franklin, one of the classiest competitors in the history of this sport.
I mean, and his victory is just even more impressive when you realize that he knew that his arm was broken early in the fight. I mean, as soon as I started talking to him, I noticed the way he was holding it, and I really wanted to get to the bottom of it, but I never expected that he had a broken arm that, I mean...
Okay, I think this clip really demonstrates and emphasizes the tenacity and fighting spirit that Rich had as a competitor, and also shows the admiration people have of him. And in this case, that was evident through the words of the commentators, Joe Rogan and Mike Goldberg. Rich was a great champion and continues to be a great ambassador for MMA. So during the interview, the name George comes up, and I just want to clarify, this is just BJJ coach at one time, George Grigero. And also wanted to let you know that during the interview, Rich is in Singapore. So there is at times a little bit of background noise, like dog barking and some kids and things like that. So just wanted to give you a heads up. After the interview, stay tuned for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. All right, let's talk to Rich now. Okay, I'm speaking with former UFC middleweight champion Rich Franklin. So, Rich, thank you so much for doing this today, and welcome to the show.
Hey, it's good to be on. I appreciate it, and we're going to have some fun today.
Absolutely. So you recently made the decision to retire from fighting, but certainly not from working, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But how hard was it for you to come to that decision to hang up the gloves, Rich?
It's always a bittersweet decision for me, but it's always difficult for an athlete. I'm basically in midlife at the age of 40, and have to kind of come to the conclusion that I'm not capable of doing the job at the top level that I once was capable of doing. And most people don't have to do that until they're in late phases of age, until they're in their late 60s or late 70s even, before they finally say, maybe it's time for me to retire. So it's always a bit different for an athlete, but I was ready. It was time to move on, and I got a great job with one championship. It's keeping me busy on the other side of the globe. So like I wrote in my retirement letter, I'm not really retiring. I'm just opening a new chapter in my life.
Certainly. And you do seem to be keeping very busy. Share with us a little bit more about what's going on with you now and what you'll be doing going forward.
Well, I'll tell you what, while we're talking, I'm actually on the other side of the globe right now. I'm in Singapore. We have our show this week, one championship show. It's the rematch between Ben Askren and Luis Santos. I'm really, really excited for that show to see this rematch, because the last fight they had ended in a controversy because Luis was the first guy that's really given Ben a run for his money, and and it ended in an eye poke. Ben accidentally caught him in the eye, and so the fight was stopped and ruled basically a no contest. And so these two have some unfinished business, and they don't particularly care for each other, so it should make for a good fight this Friday night. But no, I mean, since I've been over here, I've been done some PR work for one championship over in the Philippines. I was in Manila earlier, and then we were in Cambodia, did a couple seminars in Cambodia, and then came here for a fight week in Singapore. And so the show's in Singapore this weekend and doing all that. So yeah, I'm staying way busy on this side of the earth.
Absolutely. Sounds like it. You also have a new product you're involved in, Armor Gel. So tell us about that, Rich.
Well, I came across Armor Gel, the company that makes it, American Biotech Labs. I came across them actually at a food expo, and it actually came in handy because it comes in handy. The reason why it drew my attention, for example, was like exactly what I went through last week. I was in Cambodia, and I taught a seminar while I was in Cambodia. I was at this gym, and I actually looked at the mats in the gym and asked myself, have these mats ever been cleaned? In like ever in the history of this gym. And just with all the stuff that's going on with like MRSA and staph and all that kind of stuff in the headlines, we've seen quite a few cases in the NFL recently, and it's always been an issue with wrestlers and grapplers. Yeah, so I come across this company at a food expo a couple years ago and started talking to them about the product. The product, it's a hydro-based gel. It's a water-based gel, so it doesn't have any petroleum or alcohol base to it. But it's a gel that's designed for cuts, scrapes, and lacerations. But they have FDA claims against MRSA, staph, VRE, and several different kinds of fungus like Candida. So I use it on my ringworm, and it's effective on my ringworm as well. But basically, when I was talking to them, they said like if you have a cut, you can use this stuff to kind of seal your cut in a sense, like you would put on any other type of antibacterial thing, and it'll help your cut heal. I've used it on several cuts that I possibly should have had stitches for, and it's minimized my scarring. It cut my healing time down tremendously. But the gel is made. It's a water-based gel that's made primarily with silver. The metal, silver metal, as the antibacterial. It's a 24 ppm silver solution that they use. They have a technology that they run through. It gets kind of technical, and I'm probably only about 50% good at explaining all that. But basically, for people that don't know anything about silver, like silver's highly antibacterial. They use silver in like medical instruments because it keeps bacteria down. I guess like the tradition of like throwing a coin into a fountain and making a wish came from many years ago. They used to put silver coins in things like wishing wells and fountains to keep the water from going rancid. So because the silver will basically fight the bacteria. And so that's what this gel is made of. And when I came across these people, like, you got to use this stuff. So it's designed for cuts, scrapes, lacerations, and burns. Like if you were to burn your hand on a stove or something like that. But right. I've used this thing. I've been cut before. I've used it on cuts. It's really helped cut down the healing time I've had. And that's really significant for a fighter, especially like if you get cut in the face maybe. Certainly. Because it helps you heal, gets you back to sparring faster. But more importantly, the antibacterial properties that it has. Like I use it when I was teaching at seminar in Cambodia last week, and I looked at those mats. I just basically took my gel and covered my entire body with it. Like I just put it on like a, normally you put it on like as a post thing, or like if I have a cut, like if I had a cut on my leg or a scrape or something like that, and I was grappling on a mat, I might throw a little of my Armor Gel on that just to kind of protect that area before I grapple. But I don't always put it all over my body. But in a situation like that, I'm like, yep. So I
got to do it.
Yeah, I don't travel without this stuff. It's a really, really good product.
It sounds like an amazing, exciting product. And as a healthcare professional myself, I've worked in the hospitals years ago and certainly saw firsthand, how nasty and rough MRSA and staph can be. So anything that can help combat that is incredible. And then certainly for the grappling community, they need this more than anyone, it sounds like.
Oh, I really, when I say this is not like one of those things where it's like, oh, this product will pay me, and I literally don't travel without this product. This product, just to give you an example, this product for the guys in this company. So this product is made. It's a water-based product, and it has nothing toxic in it. Like there's no petroleums, no alcohols. Like I said, you can actually ingest the tube of silver if you wanted to.
Wow.
Which is
that
kind
says
of
a lot.
Yeah, it's important for me because, like, you know, every time I get some sort of scrape or something like that, I don't want to put an antibacterial on my skin because I don't want to constantly be putting pharmaceuticals in my body. Like, it weakens your body to antibacterial, like, when you need them. And so you know, I like using this because you don't build up a resistance to silver per se. But I like, there have even been guys in the company that when they'll keep tubes of this on them when they travel. And there was one guy that was telling me a story that he was out of the country and got food poisoning. So he actually squeezed several tubes of this in his mouth, and it killed the because food poisoning typically comes from a bacteria in the food. And he said, yeah, within hours I was pretty much good to go.
Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, there are a ton of uses for this product, but yeah, I really don't travel without it.
Wow, that says a lot. It sounds like an incredible product. I know you're happy to be involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about your work with vets. I was recently listening to your TED Talk, and for anybody listening who hasn't had a chance to hear or see Rich's TED Talk, highly recommended. Incredible talk. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, but it talks about how to be a good loser. But it's really good talk. But one of the things you share within that talk is one of the vets you visited in the hospital, and I believe he had both arms and one leg blown off, and how meeting him really had an effect on you and helped change your perspective at a time you were feeling pretty low about life. Can you share a little bit about that experience and working with vets in general? Yeah.
Life truly is all about perspective, and I would say before that experience, I've always asked myself, like, you know, I'm the kind of person, I go from 0 to 100 and then 100 back to 0 pretty much the same way. And you tend to let little things that are so insignificant in life bother you. For example, like road rage is a good example. Like people that get upset when somebody cuts them off on the road. And then, so when things like that happen to me, I tend to ask myself, like, if I was on my deathbed right now, would this matter to me? Would it matter that somebody cut me off on the road? And I try to constantly remind myself of that. And the day that I met that particular vet, I was at Walter Reed Hospital, and when I sat down and talked to him, and we're talking fresh wounds that are still bleeding, where this guy had lost 3 out of 4 of his limbs and had significant burns on his body, lost a significant portion of his hearing, his jaw was broken, and when I was sitting there talking to him, and his jaw was wired shut, so when he spoke, it sounded a lot like this. And it's just the kind of morale that he had. Like, he was just like, you know, hey, man, life is going to be great. Like, I'm going to do great things. And just to sit there and listen to him. And this was recently after I had lost my title fight with Anderson. And it just really it put things in perspective for me, because I thought, like, I wouldn't want to have to deal with the kind of loss that this person is dealing with. And so the whole point of the TED Talk in general was it's you know, how to be a good loser, or how to be a loser is the title of the talk. But basically, like, growing up, we're told, you know, don't be a sore loser, and that's pretty much like all you're ever taught about losing. Like, you know, don't be a sore loser on the field, you know, losing grace or whatever. But realistically, like, this talk is about basically, like, when you lose, it's about extracting the information from that loss and using it to productively move forward in a manner where you can get back on the winning track again. And so that's what that's all about. My work with the vets, like, I've always done. I did my first tour to Afghanistan, or not Afghanistan, but Iraq, in 2006 maybe, and since then I've done tours in the Middle East several times, done tours through Europe, tours through Asia. I've been to, it feels like nearly every possible military base on U.S. soil from East Coast to West Coast, and done quite a bit of work with the Disabled American Vets, been to the Center for the Intrepid down in San Antonio, did some stuff with an organization called IAVA, Iraq and Afghanistan's Veterans Association, which is an organization that brings, I guess, sheds light on the suicide rates of vets with PTSD and stuff like that. And so this has just been kind of a soft point for me my entire career. The American military, they're big supporters of MMA and of me, just in general. And it's just my way of kind of giving back to them as much as possible. So I do as much military work as I possibly can.
That's so great, man. You have my respect for a lot of reasons as a fighter, of course, but this here, it's so important. The vets, they put their lives on the line, fight for the country, and many times come home and are unappreciated and forgotten, and have to live with the mental pain as well as physical disability many times from what they went through. So it's so great that you're involved in that. My hat really goes off to you for that.
Look, I've met people in my life, like I said, that triple amputee, and this is not the first one. I went to the winter sports games for the disabled American vets one year, and I was skiing down a hill with a triple amputee.
Wow.
And he challenged me to a race, and I was like, okay, let's do this. I was on my snowboard. He was on a monorail. Unbeknownst to me that he was a silver medalist in the Paralympics, and he made me look stupid coming down that hill, to say the least. But I meet people all the time, whether they're military or just normal civilians, like people that are battling cancer or something like that are big fans, and they're like, man, you're an amazing fighter. And I'm looking at this person like, I would not want to fight the battle that you have going on in your life right now. Like, I would not want to fight chemotherapy and radiation. I just wouldn't want to do that. So those kind of things, like, it's when you meet people like that in your life, military or not, it really kind of, like I said, perspective. It puts everything in perspective for you.
It does. Perspective's everything. Let's change gears for a moment, Rich, and some of the listeners will be familiar with your history, and some won't. So if you would share with us how you got started originally in Jiu-Jitsu and how that led to MMA, or did you start them both at the same time? Just how did that play out?
No, actually, so when I started doing martial arts first, I started in traditional karate. I was doing Okinawan Shorin-ryu. I actually have a second-degree black belt in that.
Nice.
But what happened was, before I saw the first UFC, a guy come into our school and said, come in as a guy that was a friend of our instructor, and get to talk to him after class, and he says, hey, we have this jiu-jitsu school down the road, you should come check it out. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, and kind of just blew it off. And it was a Gracie chapter jiu-jitsu school, and this was in 1994 time frame. And so at the time, like, the instructor at that school was a blue belt, and that was a big deal in Cincinnati in 1994.
Yeah.
You could imagine, like, you have to rewind the clock, and probably
Certainly.
A lot of the listeners here probably wouldn't even realize, like, this, like, that's at a time when, like, for example, Facebook didn't exist, So
or iPhones.
Exactly. Smartphones, for that matter. Or,
Right.
like your cell phone was the size of a phone that a medic would carry in World War II, type of thing.
Exactly.
But he came in and he was talking about the jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then I saw what Hoist did, and I was like, man. And I was just training at the time just to learn how to fight in case I ever got into a fight on the street. Like, I never thought at this point in my life that I was ever going to make a career out of this. But basically, like, my instructor, his son came home from touring. He was a Marine, and he had been on several tours, and basically was discharged and come home from the service that he had done. And he had been doing some Muay Thai. And I remember sparring with him the first time, and I'd never been kicked in the legs before. And then this guy started just kicking me in the legs.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at him at the end, and I was like, dude, you got to teach me this stuff that you know. And so
what an eye-opener. Right?
Yeah, it was. So it was like, because remember, my whole, like, the quest I was on at the time was, like, if I ever get into a fight on the street, I want to be able to take care of myself. So between that and roughly about the same time, seeing what Hoist was doing, I was like, well, I probably should learn how to fight on the ground. So I started going to this local jiu-jitsu school and just learning techniques. And that was all, like, right around that. Both of those kind of simultaneously happened, like, right around that 1994 time frame for me.
Nice. And then you studied or trained with George for quite some time?
Well, I stayed at that school for some time, and then I kind of outgrew that school a little bit. I had a group of friends who, there was probably a half a dozen of us that were kind of, we worked out. My buddy Josh Rafferty, who was on the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, we worked out in a shed in his backyard. We would sit and watch videotapes, watch fights. I can remember, for example, like watching like Jeremy Horn choking out Chuck Liddell, and then work on that rear naked choke because it was like UFC, I don't know, 13 or something like that.
Right.
But I remember like watching it in slow motion and seeing how he set that up or whatever, and working like that's how we learned jiu-jitsu for a while. So I was at the school for a while, and then I was doing that for a while, and then finally a guy opened up a school for us, and we kind of opened up a quote unquote fight club where there was just probably somewhere between a half a dozen and a dozen of us guys that worked out together, that each of us had little bits of experience and no real quality black belts or anything like that. But then, after that was going on for a couple of years, I finally ran into George, and for the first time in my life had somebody who had some legitimate actual jiu-jitsu experience and knowledge. And that was, I guess that was probably like around 2000, somewhere in that time frame.
Yeah.
So 2000, 2001. So I was kind of on my own for, I probably trained at the Gracie School for a couple years, and off and on while I was doing my own research and videotapes. So I was probably on my own for about 4 years or so.
All right. And were you teaching at this time?
I started teaching in my first year teaching was 90. Well, I did a year in 97, a part-time year, and then I started teaching full-time in 98.
And just to clarify for those that don't know, teaching school, you were a school teacher before you became full-time MMA fighter.
Yeah, this whole time I was in college. I was studying to be. My major was secondary education, and with a specialty in mathematics. So I graduated in 97 with my math degree. I graduated from college. It was a 5-year program, so I graduated in 98 from school. But the last year of my program was a teaching year where we taught part-time, and then and got paid for it, and took classes. So yeah, I was teaching high school algebra and geometry, pretty much everything but calculus. And
nice.
And so yeah, all that kind of stuff, all this stuff overlapped. Like, people forget that, all of a sudden, like, I come onto the scene and they think like, oh, well, he was a school teacher that just decided to be a fighter. And it's like, no.
Yeah, one day just started fighting.
Yeah, like I had years and years and years of training into this. Like, my first fight, I quit teaching when I was about 28, I guess. And so I'd been training for 11 or 12 years at that point in time, with a true focus in MMA for probably 10 of those years.
Was there a time that you remember that it kind of clicked in your mind that you really could and were going to do this as far as MMA and taking it all the way and really go for UFC champion?
That wasn't until my 4th year of teaching.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And so that, like, basically, like, I woke up that year and I thought, like, I wonder if I could do this full time. And so my manager at the time, I had a guy managing my career, kind of lining up fights for me and stuff like that. And he basically gave me the nobody does this part-time kind of talk. And I was like, you know what? I guess it's time for me to decide one way or the other. So I decided I was going to make that my last year of teaching and pursue MMA as a career. Of course, I had my certifications and all that kind of stuff. So even if it didn't pan out for me, I could have gone back to teaching a couple years later. But I decided that I wanted to take that leap of faith and see what I could do.
Awesome. And the rest is history.
Exactly.
Well, you've really done a lot for MMA and the image of MMA. But back when you came on the scene or really started getting noticed, a lot of people still thought of MMA fighters as barbarians and MMA as barbaric. And, you come on the scene, you're intelligent, articulate, classy. And I think you really showed people that there are a lot of different kind of people that are MMA fighters. So that's cool.
Intelligent, articulate, and classy. That's a great way.
How about that?
That's an awesome way to describe me. And then later on, they made a movie character about me by the name of Ron Burgundy.
Oh, really?
No, I'm joking.
So, Rich, who's had the biggest impact on your life? And this could be professionally or personally.
Oh, man.
And while you're thinking about that, and what's the most important thing or lesson you learned from this person?
Gosh, there's so many people that have had, like, the work ethic that look, I grew up poor. It's so funny. I was in Cambodia the other day, and I was talking to this guy, and we had this fighter that fought on one of our cards, and they were talking about how poor some of the people in Cambodia were, and it's like, they'll go around on Saturdays and they'll collect trash that's recyclable so that they can turn it into the recycling centers for money. And and he's like, that's how poor they are. And they're this guy in Cambodia is telling me this story, like, that's how poor people are. And I'm like, you just described my childhood, man. I'm like, I was so poor as a kid that, like, and this wasn't like me and my brother deciding to like go collect aluminum cans for extra money. Like like I remember as a child, like my dad and stuff, like we would go walking around and collect aluminum cans and turn these cans into the recycling center for extra money. Because we were so poor growing up, I mean, I don't want to say like I don't want to create this picture of like being out on the street and all that kind of stuff, kind of poor, but just kind of scraping by, like barely having money to buy new gym shoes for school that year and stuff like that, and definitely buying things at flea markets and not getting the best brands and all that kind. The list goes on, but yeah, I mean, I grew up poor, and so my parents, like, they really instilled this work ethic in me, and both of them, both my mom and my dad, and then my mom and dad got divorced when I was a young child. My dad got remarried, and when he got remarried, like my grandfather by marriage, who I just called Grandpa my entire life, like he was a minister growing up, and I think he had a huge impact on my life. Like I grew up in an environment where I should have gotten into a lot of trouble, and I didn't, and I think I didn't because there was just this big portion of my life that was kind of like I had this draw towards God, like basically like me and Jesus are buddies, and we've been buddies for a long time. And I think like had I not had these elements in my life, like my life would have taken a completely different, like I would have been on a completely different path. And so there's just, man, to like pinpoint one person, there's just so many different people in my life that have really, really made a huge impact on the development of who I am as a person.
Oh, that's even better. I mean, forget one person when you've had that many people in your corner and having such a profound impact on your life, man. That's truly blessed there.
Yeah, I really am. I really have been. I've had my fair share of douchebags in my life too, but I've been really, really fortunate to be surrounded by good people my entire life. Awesome. So I got to ask you about your nickname. When you were a fighter, I'm sure you get this all the time, many times over the year. But when you were in your fighting career, your nickname was Ace, and so because of the resemblance to Jim Carrey and the character Ace Ventura. So how did you actually get that, and how did you feel about having that nickname throughout the years? I like how did I get it? Is pretty easy. When you look like somebody, it's kind of unavoidable.
Well, who actually put that name to you?
Just to back up, like when I was in high school and stuff, it was worse. I looked more like Jim Carrey because I was a lot skinnier.
Oh, really?
A lot skinnier in high school, and so if you hung out with me for a day, like there are certain mannerisms I have where you're like, I can see why people would think you might look like him a little bit, like just I don't know, body language that I do occasionally and whatever. But yeah, it kind of just came about. I think Bruce Buffer was the one that kind of. There was always this murmuring and talking about it and joking amongst my camp with like me looking like Jim Carrey and everything, and then all of a sudden, I don't know if one show, maybe Joe Rogan, said that I look like Jim Carrey on steroids, jokingly, and then Bruce Buffer introduced me as Ace one time, which I think George probably had a hand in, all that, and it just stuck. It wasn't going away. So at first I tried to kind of play it off like, no, it's like Ace, like flawless, like a fighter pilot who's an ace.
Yeah.
It's just really, people are like, no, you just look like a silly comedian.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. You never had the chance to meet him, have you?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No, actually, surely I would think like he's got to know who I am. Like,
I was about to say,
my entire there've been like T-shirts that have kind of like when Stephen Bonner made his the Punch Buddy shirts that he did, and it was kind of a play off of the whole Ace Ventura movie cover, the DVD cover or whatever. So, he's had to kind of catch wind of it, but no, I've never. And so I I had on my social media, everybody say like, look, if you guys can get any kind of response from Jim Carrey on social media, like I'll send you like a pair of autographed gloves just to see if anybody could get a response, and nobody could.
That's good to try. That's funny.
Maybe made for some fun.
Absolutely. Maybe he'll end up playing you in your life movie someday.
Now maybe you know what? Maybe he plays me on the video game. Maybe he has the video game. And he's like, you know who my favorite fighter is? Ace. Ace.
That's got to be.
It's awesome.
It's got to be it. That's got to be it. So, tell me one thing that people might be surprised to know about you, Rich.
See, that's like saying, tell me a secret, and if I tell you that, then
everybody will know.
Yeah, exactly. Something that somebody might, I don't know. I run this weird balance in my life. Like there's part of me is this adrenaline junkie, who just is addicted to like doing crazy things, speed. And when I say speed, I don't mean the drug. I mean things that are fast. But I'm just clarifying for the listeners. And like there's part of me that's like that, but then there's this other part of me that's like real quiet and reserved. Interestingly enough, for example, I never wanted to be, I'm making quotation marks with my fingers here. I never wanted to be famous. Like I'm not the kind of person that likes to be the center of attention at a party.
Right.
And I had really had a hard time public speaking, and that seems to be becoming part of what I'll do in the future, and I'm much better at it now than I used to be. But I'm not a guy who wants to be the center of attention at a party. And so, for example, I've never had a drink of alcohol in my life, ever. And that would surprise most people. And when I tell people that, they usually think that I'm just full of crap. But I'm not. So I guess there's a fun little fact for you.
All right, that's a good one. All right, so before we close, anybody you'd like to thank or shout out to or anything, Rich?
Oh, man, you put me on a spot here, and then you start thinking.
Sorry, man.
You start thanking people, and then you forget that one person.
Right.
It's like, look, I think the people in my life that know that they're significant, like coaches that helped me prep my entire career, or training partners that helped me get ready, or the family members that were supportive and all that. I wrote that in my retirement.
They know who they are.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they know who they are. And
right.
And people that really know what kind of impact they made don't need me to kind of advertise what kind of impact they made.
Sure.
So, just look, other than that, I want to say thanks to all my fans over the years. I've had I've really just been blessed with good fans and a great career and all that kind of stuff. And I guess aside from that, just, just thank God, because he's kind of been in my corner my whole life, and so that's been really important to me.
Awesome. And when you say your fans, I'm certainly in that group, big fan of yours.
Thank you.
For many years now, and it's an absolute honor to talk to you, Rich. I appreciate it very much. Wish you the best of luck going forward in your new endeavors, your with the one championship and the Armor Jail, continued work with the vets. You're just a outstanding person and a great role model. I'm not trying to put you up on a pedestal. I love, in this day and age, more than ever, it's so important to have people that are good, classy people that you want to emulate. So I thank you for being one of those people, and for everybody out there that looks up to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. It's a good, fun little interview.
All right. Thanks, Rich. Long life, my friend.
Yeah, you're welcome, brother. Take care.
Okay, time for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Today's subject: fully understand the notion of wherever you go, there you are. So Wherever You Go, There You Are is the title of a great book by Jon Kabat-Zinn. As the title suggests, wherever you go, you take yourself with you. The significance of this statement is that it can teach you to stop constantly wishing you were somewhere else. We tend to believe that if we were somewhere else, like on vacation, with another partner, in a different career, a different home, a different circumstance, that somehow we would be happier and more content. I call this the grass is always greener syndrome. The truth is, if you have destructive mental habits, if you get annoyed and bothered easily, if you feel angry and frustrated a great deal of the time, or if you're constantly wishing things were different, these identical tendencies will follow you wherever you go. And the reverse is also true. If you are a generally happy person who rarely gets annoyed and bothered, then you can move from place to place, from person to person, with very little negative impact. I grew up in Florida, and someone once asked me, "What are the people like in Florida?" I asked him, "What are the people like in your home state?" He replied, "Selfish and greedy." I told him that he would probably find the people in Florida to be selfish and greedy. The grass isn't greener somewhere else. The grass is greener where you water it. Something wonderful begins to happen with this simple realization that life, like an automobile, is driven from the inside out, not the other way around. As you focus more on becoming more peaceful with where you are, rather than focusing on where you would rather be, you begin to find peace right now, in the present. Then, as you move around, try new things, and meet new people, you carry that sense of inner peace with you. It's absolutely true that wherever you go, there you are. And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I appreciate your listening and your support. Don't forget to help us spread the word about the show. If you haven't liked us yet on Facebook or Twitter, please do so and give us feedback. We'd love to hear what you think about the show. You can do that on iTunes. As you rate the show, you can leave a comment, as well as via email. You can go to www.graciejujitsurocks.com, and you can also leave feedback via a voice message at 919-251-5053. Either way, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback, as it will help us to always get better and better. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.